I want to talk about a divide that I see every single day in the financial wellness space. And it's a divide that most people in this industry either don't recognize, don't want to acknowledge, or have never been close enough to the ground to even notice. It's the gap between the people who build financial wellness programs and the people those programs are supposed to serve. And it is enormous. Here's how I describe it. On one side of the divide, you have the ivory tower. There are smart people, credentialed people, people who read research papers and industry reports, and they write their strategy documents. People who have genuinely good intentions. They sit in conference rooms with whiteboards and they build frameworks. They produce beautifully designed programs with bullet-pointed modules, and they have downloadable worksheets and tools and cheerful graphics about emergency funds. And then on the other side of the divide, you have someone staring at their bank account at 11 p.m. trying to figure out which bill they can push to next week so they can buy groceries this week. Someone who gets a financial wellness email from their HR department and thinks, with absolutely no sarcasm, how the hell does this help me? Those two people are increasingly living in completely different universes. And the problem is that one of them is designing the program for the other, and they have no idea what the other one's life actually looks like. So before I get into the gap itself, let me be clear about how big this problem is, because sometimes when people talk about a financial stress, it sounds abstract. It isn't. According to recent surveys, 75% of workers in the US are living paycheck to paycheck. That's nearly 8 out of 10 people who are just barely getting by. And 72% of employees say that worrying about money is their top stressor in life, above health, relationships, everything else. That's the population we're talking about, not people trying to decide between a Roth IRA and a brokerage account. People trying to figure out if they can make rent. Now, here's what the industry is serving up to those people. Despite the scale of financial stress in the workplace, only 31% of employees participate in employer-sponsored financial wellness programs. 1/3 of employees who have access to financial wellness benefits don't use them, whether because of a lack of awareness, the stigma, or the perceived difficulty. 1 in 3 people who have access to a financial wellness program don't even touch it, on a problem that 78% of the workforce is dealing with every single day. That's not a marketing problem. That's not a communication problem. It's a relevance problem. And here's the thing that I've come to understand after years of working directly with people on their finances, one-on-one, in the trenches, in their real lives, every day. Most financial wellness programs are built by people who have never personally experienced the problem they're trying to solve. And I don't say that to be harsh. I say it because it's simply structurally true. The people building these programs tend to work at companies where salaries outpace expenses. They have 401ks, they have their 401k matching, they have health insurance. They live in a world where the math basically works out itself, where income exceeds outflow and financial stability gets quietly enforced by circumstance rather than their own discipline. They didn't necessarily do anything dramatically right. The numbers just worked out for them. And from inside that bubble, it's completely natural to build a program based on what should logically help someone. Save 3 to 6 months of expenses. Contribute enough to your 401k to get the employer match. Build a budget. Track your spending. All of that is correct. None of it's technically wrong. And none of it connects with a person who has $47 in their checking account the week before payday, 2 kids, and they need school supplies, a full tank of gas, dinner, an electrical bill paid, and a car that's making a sound that it wasn't making last month. Financial wellness programs often don't live up to expectations in the real world. Programs are well-intentioned, but a small fraction of people actually use them. One practitioner described a webinar series built for a global business with tens of thousands of employees. And the most recent educational video had been watched by 109 people at a company with tens of thousands of people. Someone spent real time, real money, real effort to build that resource, and the audience received it with deafening silence. And the strange thing is the people in the ivory tower pat themselves on the back for reaching 109 people. Tens of thousands of people actually voted with their feet and said directly, that content that you made, it was not for me. Here's the fundamental distinction I want to make, and one that I think is genuinely important for anyone in the space to sit with. There is a significant difference between things that should work in theory and things that actually do work for real people. A program filled with recycled mantras, the tired rules, the oft-repeated guidelines, the same advice that has been printed in personal finance books since 1985 might be technically correct. But technically correct doesn't pay someone's utility bill. It doesn't get their kid through a month without switching to a cheaper brand of everything. It doesn't change the actual behavior of someone who has tried and failed at the obvious advice a dozen times and has finally given up believing that any of it applies to them. A revealing disconnect shows up in the data. While employers are investing more in financial wellness programs, those investments often don't actually prioritize what employees say they need. Only 12% of employees say they're interested in improved financial education and planning benefits because education being offered isn't solving the problem they're experiencing. Employees aren't uninterested in their finances. They are desperately, urgently interested in their finances. They're disinterested in the version of financial guidance that talks to them like they're someone else. The best insight I can offer from years of working directly with people, sitting with them, building with them, watching them fail, discovering what works, and seeing what actually leads them to success is that the advice that actually moves the needle is almost never the advice from the textbook. It's the advice that came from seeing what happened when someone tried something in their actual life. It came from a real conversation, from watching someone's face when something finally clicked, from learning that the thing you were sure would work didn't, and then figuring out something better. That knowledge can't be generated in a conference room. It can't come from someone reading other people's reports. It lives in the field. It lives in the conversation. It lives in the moment when the person on the other side of the table says, that actually helped me out a lot. And then you take that and you file it away and you build on that and you keep refining it because real people keep teaching you things that the research can't capture. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that every program built by a team of smart people in an office is worthless. There are programs doing genuinely important work. There are tools that help real people. There are frameworks that, when delivered the right way to the right person at the right moment, genuinely change outcomes. The most effective approach, according to PwC's research, is one that creates secure, judgment-free entry points into financial education, meeting employees where they actually are. The issue for most people isn't motivation. It's confidence, trust, and feeling overwhelmed. And that gap is where the effective programs can actually make a difference, when they're built with that reality in mind. The most honest assessment I've seen in the literature is this: financial wellness programs can reduce stress and improve money management, but they don't fix underlying compensation problems. If a worker can't cover their basic living costs, coaching and apps are stopgaps, not solutions. That kind of honesty, acknowledging what the programs can and can't do, is itself a sign of a program built by people who understand the reality on the ground. Because a program that overpromises is one that loses credibility the moment someone tries to apply it to their actual life, because they're going to discover it doesn't really fit. The programs worth something are the ones that are built, refined, and tested in the field, not the ones that emerged whole from a strategy session, the ones that got their edges knocked off by an actual human being with actual human problems, until what remained was the stuff that genuinely worked. Listen, every day I get to work directly with people who are navigating real financial challenges, not hypothetical ones, not the challenges of someone in the top income bracket trying to optimize their portfolio. Real challenges, the kind that wake people up at 3 a.m. And what I know from that work and those conversations, from the thousands of small adjustments and discoveries that come from being in the room with these people, is that the gap between theory and practice in the space is huge. It's enormous, and it doesn't have to be. If you're building a financial wellness program and you haven't spent serious time with the people you're building them for, not studying them, not surveying them, but actually sitting with them and their real problems, your program has a ceiling it may never reach. Get out of the office, get out of the data, get out of the research reports and the statistics and the averages, get into the real conversations. Because the people who need financial wellness the most are incredibly good at knowing within about 30 seconds whether the person trying to help them has actually ever been in their shoes or is just reading from someone else's notes. Be the person who's out there. Build from that place. Everything else follows.